Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Strategic Business Influencer, my series for leaders who know that in today's evolving world, trust is the greatest competitive advantage. Today, I am excited to welcome Lina Supnet-Zapata to the Strategic Business Influencer. She is an aging life care manager, advanced professional, MBA, and CEO of Mir Senior Care Consultants. With more than 30 years in the healthcare industry, Lina has dedicated her career to patient advocacy, consumer health education, and ensuring excellence and accountability in care, especially during some of life's most vulnerable moments. After spending a decade as a community educator and area director in hospice care, Lina joined her mother-in-law to help lead Senior Care Consultants, a company founded in 2004. Today, as CEO, she oversees 4 locations across Texas and continues to expand the company's legacy of compassionate, ethical, and strategic care management. Lina is also stepping into national leadership as president of the Aging Life Care Association, becoming the first woman of color to lead the 2,000 member organization. Her work extends way beyond her company, serving on multiple boards, including Age of Central Texas and Women's Business Enterprises, and actively supporting initiatives such as Dementia Friendly America and Austin LGBT Chamber. Wow, Lina, that's a lot of things to be doing. I'm so excited to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Paige. Appreciate the intro.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that I believe is so beautiful about your company's story is you stepped into Mir Senior Care Consultants after your mother-in-law founded the company. And now you're the CEO and
Yes.
you're protecting and expanding that legacy. What were those biggest challenges in transitioning into a family-founded business? And how are you evolving that legacy while honoring the roots?
Well, working with your mother-in-law, if you just saw from the outside looking in, it was like, how is that possible? But I would say that my mother-in-law, Frances, has been such a supporter and cheerleader, and given me the platform and the opportunity to run this company. She was a single mom, working a couple of jobs, and she founded the company with just saying that I think I can do this. And so she was one person. She's a nurse by background. And then we're here today in 2026 with almost 19 members. We've expanded the footprint. Our company was born in Corpus Christi. And so I'm very proud of what she has given us the opportunity to do. She is the nicest lady, and she does things with such integrity, but also with a softness and a kindness. But that name Mir means peace. And that's very important, that I uphold that, the name and what it means. And it's my kid's great grandparents' name. And so I really want to honor that legacy. But some of the challenges, I am a business development person by background, and, trying to balance innovation, scaling, and technology, and trying to do all of that, while trying to maintain that this is her company when I first joined, and to do that respectfully. But also, I'm just such a go-getter that, sometimes they'd have to hold the reins back. But for the most part, she's given me the opportunity to lead. And so that is really one of the key things that has been so helpful in the trajectory of where this company has gone.
That's beautiful. And I'm sure she saw all of those characteristics and traits in you. And that's why you are now the CEO. So I think
I hope
that's.
so.
Well, I want to talk about your leadership a little bit more,
Sure.
Especially coming from hospice, then joining a family business, then transitioning to CEO. How has that leadership identity for you evolved over the years?
Well, I will say, Paige, that I was trying to prove myself every single day, get to the top, do what you need to do, head down, focus, proving yourself, and I was a young person in starting out my healthcare career. But then, it evolved into being more confident that you don't have to prove that if you lead from the front, that if you lead with integrity, you do the right things, that success will come. Right. And so there has been a confidence that has evolved in how I approach things. In the company now, I try to be available as much as possible. We lead with professionalism, ethics, integrity, and that's how I lead myself. That's how I lead my company. That's how I lead my team, and anybody that I mentor or comes into my ecosystem. That's how I try to be, is the most authentic that I can be. And so I hope that I'm answering the question correctly, because I feel like I'm going down some tangents. So my apologies.
No, you absolutely are. And I think that's something that's so important that you shared, especially in the beginning of leadership. You were focused on proving yourself, and you realize that needs to, that transition for you over time. For those that you are mentoring, I love that you're mentoring other leaders. Do you see them face the same thing early on in their careers?
Yes, I do see that. And, in my day, in the 80s and 90s, I didn't have a reference. My reference, I was telling you earlier, was cinematic. Sigourney Weaver from Working Girl, and that may be too dated for maybe a younger audience to relate to. Or we were perceived as, you have to be a really hard person to be a boss. And for me, I'm always like, how can you lead with a little softness, but also get your point across? And how can you be vulnerable, but also not be perceived as, oh, she's a pushover, Right. And so and I also, the young women that are in my sphere and that I mentor, speak up, put yourself at the table, be strong, be confident in what you're saying. And then if you're going to say that you're going to do something, do it at the highest level. But don't be afraid to speak up and speak your mind. And I think that is really also one of the toughest challenges that I had, because, men dominated the boardroom, men dominated the workforce. And sometimes people would say, don't cause trouble, be quiet. And I just found that, as I've aged, that's not who I am. And I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to say what I need to say, as long as it's respectful and with integrity. But that's what being an advocate is as well.
Absolutely.
And what I do in my career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. And like you said, speak up, and two, maybe, don't be afraid to ask questions.
No.
When you don't know something or you want to learn more about it. So I love that.
We have a lot of young interns that come through our program, and it's been a learning experience for us too, because I'm of the older, and we have master's level and bachelor's level social workers coming through our program, and we encourage them, ask questions. It's okay to ask questions, and seeing them evolve is so wonderful. Or even speaking up and being an advocate for the client. Like, why can't we do this?
Right.
Why can't their rights be restored? Or why is the hospital doing this? How can we solve this? And sometimes, we have to agree and say, you know what, that's just not the way it is, but this is how the law is, or this is how guardianship works. But the point that they're asking questions is just, and you see this maturity evolve. It's just so wonderful to see. And several of those interns have become full-time employees, which is
I love that.
Which I love.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And so I want to talk a little bit more about your industry.
Sure.
You were briefly just touching on that. You operate in both a highly regulated guardianship space,
Yes,
and also more flexible yet standard driven aging life care space. And so in such a complex healthcare system, how do you truly differentiate your company?
Well, it is very interesting. So aging life care, we do elder care and special needs. We're care strategists. We don't do any of the caregiving, but we're working alongside allied professionals and navigating the landscape of healthcare, everything, benefits, housing, medication management, you name it. And so we have the foundational expertise and the knowledge to be guardian of person. But when you become court appointed, you have to follow the estates code, and you have to follow the rules. And so here's the interesting thing, and kind of how do you bring softness to a guardianship case when you're appointed and so regulated. And so how we approach guardianship and bringing our expertise of being care strategists in aging life care to the guardianship world is that it is not our way or the highway. If we can stay within the boundaries of, what the law says, but be able to be kind and be able to navigate and bring joy to, which is a very, very, challenging situation because no one wants to be under guardianship,
right,
for the most part. And then you have family members that also don't want somebody as a third party to be, the guardian. And these are challenges that we face every day. So being able to approach it where we can invite family in, we can help them understand the process, walk alongside them. Now, does it always turn out perfectly? No, but we always try to lead with this person is a person. It's a protected person. So how can we honor that? How can we bring family in if they choose not to be disruptive? And how can we bring this person that is protected person who's under guardianship a little bit of joy, despite the fact that they've had these very difficult challenges that put them under guardianship in the first place? And then on the other side of that, with aging life care, I'm a daughter caregiver. I am living the secret life of a CEO and managing all of my mom's care. And for the daughter and being the advocate is, how do we help women who are in whatever role they're in to protect their mental health, their physical health? And if they're in a career, how do we allow them to still have career momentum, not lose benefits because they have to take off work and manage care for an elder parent sometimes too. And so my advocacy in my aging life care life is, prepare, let's talk about it. And because eventually it's going to fall on one of us, the female,
right?
At least 75% of the time, it's going to fall on one of us. So how do we prepare ourselves, or how do I as a professional prepare you to be able to know what to expect? Because we have a financial plan, we have a legal plan, but if you're going on a trip, the care journey, you got to have that plan. And if you don't have that plan, everything else falls apart. So I'm really trying to help navigate and work alongside women to prepare themselves for the care journey, because it's challenging and we have to balance a lot with that.
Absolutely. And I've heard that, kind of where we're at right now, there's so many women who are balancing care of their parents or, their spouse's parents, as well as their children at the same time, and, professionally working.
Yes. And so I'm just trying to, provide a resource and support that you don't, you may have to take some time off, but there is some help and coaching and guides that can help you, whether it's me or the 2,000 colleagues I have across the country, that there are guides that can help so that you are not sacrificing, your work, your mental health, your physical health and family dynamics. And so it's a big thing because we don't really talk about it. I can be on a screen with 100 women and none of them lead with, I'm a caregiver. It's just something that we do.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the culture you created within the company, because I know in a previous conversation that I've had with you, I was just so impressed with how you've approached it. And I imagine a lot of that is just through your experience personally, but you have a culture that values that flexibility, outside pursuits, longevity, especially for women that are navigating what we were just talking about, caregiving and career. How has your leadership philosophy become a strategic advantage for talent retention and growth?
Well, I would say that sometimes flexibility is not for everybody. Some people like a very
Yeah, that's true.
structured environment. And so, I was a hospice educator and leader for over a decade, and I got laid off in 2013 by an acquisition, whatever you want to call it, second acquisition. And so I was going to say, what am I going to do? And so Frances, my mother-in-law, said, why don't you think about opening the office in Austin? And so I said, if I'm going to do this, because I dedicated and was so ambitious and wanted to be at the top in my corporate career, that I neglected, I will say, the time that I would be as a room mom, as a football mom, as a dance mom, whatever my kids were doing. And my husband, it was 50-50. And so, I said, I don't ever want to do that again. I don't want to have to sacrifice. And I don't want to have a team or a company. I didn't even know I was going to lead a company. But if I'm a manager, I want to afford flexibility for the team. I want them to be able to go to the dances if they have a recital. I want them to be able to take their mom, to a doctor's appointment if they need it, And so I defined a company culture that said, do what you need to do. I'm not going to manage your time. You know the goal.
Right.
And so I think that has afforded me a lot of longevity with the team members that I have. I've had my right-hand person with me since day one. And I've seen her kids born, and now, they're entering high school. And I've seen, that template amongst many of my team members who, wherever they are, if they're a caregiver, if they're a young mom, I have 2 that are getting married, and I'm going to see that unfold. And so it's just really nice to be able to see that I can afford an organization that permits that. Women are the greatest multitaskers. So if I give them a goal, they might not get it done from 9 to 5, but they'll get it done. Yeah. At least the women that are on my team. And I have 18 women, 19 women on the team. And that's not by design, but it just happens to be that way. And so to see the evolution from, we have a very diverse team from age to, ethnicity. And so it's really so lovely to see them evolve, especially when they become when they're interns, and then they, they evolve into full-time team members. But wherever they are in their life, if they need to do something, they can do it without having to feel like, oh my gosh, I got to take off work and I have to ask my boss. That is, if I can alleviate that one stressor, I think that is a good thing about, my culture and what we've built. And Frances is very much the same with the mindset. I mean, she started it all. She was the single mom of 2 trying to balance everything. So she really set the example. And we wholeheartedly believe that. And I think that that's been a part of why we have longevity. And then when you have longevity, you have people on the same team. And I think we are able to expand and be successful in what we do. And they embody that, the team embodies it. So I love that as well.
Well, that's incredible that's ingrained in the culture, but also you've been able to see, life flourish for your team. Because I think that is so special as a leader and rewarding as a leader that, they've been able to integrate that, continue to do what they're passionate about, and continue to build something great together. So I commend you on that as a leader, because it's not easy to do. And that's not something that you find in every workplace.
Yes. And the heart tugs sometimes, because sometimes, depending on where the business is at, you have to kind of say no, or, hold true to the boundaries of, I am running a business. But I love to see the sports mom. I love to see the engagements and the births. It's just so amazing. We even have one woman whose daughter went into space, and, she's an astronaut. And it's like, wow, so it's just lovely to see that. and to be able to lead that. I'm really proud of that work.
Absolutely. You should be. You should be. Well, I want to turn back and talk about, how we met a little bit, and
Yes.
then just share a little bit about what you've been through in your leadership reflection. So, we met at an event probably last fall, I think it was, or end of the year.
It was the end of the
And
year.
you read the book, The Strategic Business Influencer, and you sent me an email, which I thought was just so thoughtful and so beautifully crafted, just sharing your experience, as you were a few chapters into the book, what you had learned. And you talked about, going through the influence ID process and going through the interviews of your peers and how really understanding how they see you.
Yeah.
And you shared that was such a transformational experience for you. And I even loved reading what you had gotten back from those interviews. I think it was just so extremely beautiful. There were probably so many themes in there that were just hard for you to maybe recognize, but it was also validation.
Yes.
And so I wanted to have you share just what you discovered through the Influence ID process, how that validation changed the way that you show up as a CEO.
Well, it has been transformational. There's no other word for it. And so when I heard you speak and Sarah Goodman introduced you, and she said, "We have this lovely person here for 45 minutes, ask the questions, listen to what she has to say," because she's just such good information. And so the book was being distributed, and I read it, and I actually had been going through this exercise of the anti-scroll, doom scrolling. And I said, I'm going to read this book, and I like what it had to say, for small businesses on a budget. And I said, oh, that's me. And I went through and was starting to annotate and write these things down. And then the exercise about asking five, six people in your world. And I said, oh, it was a little bit overwhelming. And I was like, who am I going to ask? But, in asking, there's also a bravery to it, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know what the answers is going to be. And, I was really kind of nail biting when I sent it out. I was like, gosh, I wonder what they're going to say, especially the 5 words that describe me. And so I did send it to 5 people, one of them being my husband, and then a lifelong friend, someone that I'm mentoring, and the 2 leaders within my organization who sit on either side of me. And it was such an emotional experience. And I was telling you this morning, I was kind of reviewing as I went into this interview or this podcast. And I was like, are they talking about me? They're talking about me. But, it's something that I already had in my mind, but you struggle with the ego, and it's like, well, I can't say that about myself, because then I'd be bragging, or, people would say, gosh, she's just so into herself. But when I read the words that the people that are important to me have a common theme with the words that describe me and the words that didn't describe me, just validated who I am, and who I am in my head is how people see me. And the negative, not the negative, but the words that don't describe me also validated, like, I am not that. I am not boring. I am energetic. I am passionate and loyal. Loyal came up at least 4 times within the questionnaire. And so just seeing that and reading it, and I read it, I have printed it out, and I've read it a couple of times, just wow. And so with that information, it has made me feel more confident that I am not being pretentious. It is who I am. This is Lina. This is Lina's ID. And I can stand in that confidently and proudly, and that it's authentic, because it's just not my conversation in my head and saying that I think this is who I am. It's how others see me. And so that evolution has really, like I told you earlier, has been a catalyst to strength, to confidence, and that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to aging. that I am a connector and that I am somebody that is loyal and will be the most authentic, whether I'm with a CEO or with an intern. I'm the same person. And that was also a theme as well. And so it just was so affirming and made me feel like, wow, you have a gift, and so use it. Use it in the best
And
way that you can. You're succeeding, so serve. And how you're going to choose. That's what my dad said. If you're succeeding, Lina, you need to serve in capacity of whatever that is, and do it well. And so I feel like this is the fuel that I needed. It's validated. And so with that, I think, there's so much opportunity, and not to be afraid and be bold. And I think also that this exercise in this book is going to be so helpful for the people in my circle. And hopefully that ripple effect is that there will be more women accessible to other young women who are trying to make it or need support. Because in my day, it was a lonely island. Leadership is lonely. And so to be able to know that, with this exercise that it may help other women, and then other women are going to help other women. Wow. It's the ripple effect. So I just thank you so much for creating that exercise. And I'm so glad that the universe brought it to me and that I was able to do it, because it's been so helpful, especially this is the fire horse. So it just went, right in conjunction with that.
I love that. And thank you so much for being willing to just come on here and share. Before we pressed record, I shared with you, this is not an easy ask that I had of you. It's already a lot to go through that exercise. Like you were saying, it's very intimate when we are thinking about ourselves and how to represent ourselves. And this whole idea of being a strategic business influencer is getting, on the same page and representing yourself, online in every facet, the same way that people are going to see you offline. Right. And how you show up. And so, but you're right. Going out and asking others what they think about you. One, you've got to put on your brave face for yourself on what you're about to hear. But two, that's a scary ask. And you coming on and even just sharing that with everybody is huge as well. And one thing that I love that you said at the beginning of the conversation is, early on, a lot of us in leadership focus on proving ourselves, but this type of exercise kind of shows, the more you authentically show up, the more that you keep serving, as you're saying, that's naturally going to come through.
Yeah, you don't have to prove it. I did want to make a reference to the very last question. Is there anything that I can do? I think it's anything I can do better, or as a friend or as a leader. And those questions also, the answers, it's like, okay, maybe don't like think about it before you start responding. And, all of these things that, areas of improvement. But I knew that about myself as well. So for the good and the areas that I needed improvement, like my husband, he goes, be more patient with your husband. It's like, okay. The answers were like, okay, yeah, that's an area that, yes, I feel like I can still work on. But it was all something, as the words that describe me, it was also things that I need to improve on were also true.
Yes.
You have a lot of crazy ideas and you have a lot of things, but let's just slow down and think about it before, we press go. And I know that about myself. And so that was also validated that people see those areas as well.
Just reinforcement there. And then being able to, kind of share, kind of look at all those themes and look at how you answer the questions about yourself and finding the cross references is just beautiful self-discovery reflection. And I'm so happy that you went through the exercise and are sharing it, because like you said, especially I see this with women that we work with a lot of times, it's so hard to see what others see in us.
Yes. But I think once you do the exercise, it's like, wow, it's so validating. It really is. And I think that I think that every lady boss should do the exercise.
I do too. That is
Or
the goal,
encourage
Lina.
you to do the exercise. I think it's just wonderful just to validate.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there are two questions that I love to ask every entrepreneur. So I want to get your answers on this. The first question is, who are you in addition to being a CEO?
Oh my gosh. I'm a dog mom. I'm a wife. I'm mother. I'm a mother-in-law, sister-in-law, friend to many, I think. Crazy pickleball player. And married 25 years to the most wonderful guy. But I just like to live elevated. I like to laugh, and I just like to be able to connect people and be surrounded. I'm very much an extrovert, so being around people really filled my cup. And I love hanging around my lady friends, through pickleball. We have from 22 all the way to 72 and everybody in between.
Wow.
And so it's just, what other way can you get women with such age diversity together and laugh and be physical, on the court. And so some people say I'm a little obsessed, but it just really fills my cup. And at 60 years old, I'm like, listen, I'm going to move it and groove it until I can't move it and groove it anymore.
I love it.
Yeah. So I just like to live life elevated and be around people who are kind and generous. And so I hope that I lead in that same way, being a CEO or on the pickleball court or just hanging around and having a glass of wine.
I love that. And after reading all the feedback from your peers and your family and friends, they all see that too. So that's wonderful. And then the second question that I have is, what is the impact that you want to have at the end of every single day?
Wow, that's a good question. I thought about that, and it's like there's so many facets, but I want to be the impact that I have every day is that I led with kindness, that I made a difference in a daughter's life or a son's life, in my expertise and my care strategies. And that also that I have contributed to a profession that I think is so needed in this space where, women are handling so much. But also that I'm a good mom and that I'm a good wife, not perfect. And that I'm known for, just being available, and having heart, and not being a hard ass. I just want to be able to lead with compassion, and that's okay.
I love that. I love that. And Lina, if anybody wants to find you, or if they want to learn more about Mir Senior Care Consultants, where could they go?
So they can go to our website, mircareconsultants.com, and that's MIR, Mir, careconsultants.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, can be found on LinkedIn under Lina Supnet-Zapata. So that's where you can find more about us. And then aginglifecare.org is the national association that I'll be leading in 2027.
Wonderful. Well, they are very lucky to have you, and congratulations on that role. And y'all, please go connect with Lina, especially on LinkedIn. As you can all tell, she is just a wealth of knowledge and just, all around incredible. And I'm just so grateful, Lina, that one, you reached out to me after the event and reading the book and going through the exercise, but two, that you were willing to get on and share with everybody today your journey as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a caregiver, and going through these exercises, your ability to continue growth, and it's beautiful. So I'm just so grateful for this conversation today and excited to share it with everybody.
Well, thank you. And I'm grateful to you as well for creating the book and giving me the opportunity. I hope I'm the first of many, or, many, many women that will go through this and stand in, and be confident in who they are after doing this exercise. And so thank you. I wrote to you without any expectation, just wanted to just say I'm so grateful. And it evolved into this. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit about who I am, and as a leader, and then also as a person.
Well, I love that. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see y'all next time.